Hi, and welcome to Kate Anjou's Book Reviews, the place where we shine a light on indie books and their authors. Today, I have the absolute pleasure of talking with Cyran Faringray, author of the Toll of Flesh series, and we're going to be discussing the book Love Like Gilded Bones. So, how are you doing? Welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me. I'm
Yeah.
really honored to be here.
Oh no, the pleasure is absolutely all mine. Like I have been aware of you and your work for just over a year now, and I have become a really big fan. And over time, and thanks to the internet, you and I have cultivated a really lovely friendship and things. So no, pleasure is all mine, all mine.
Thank
Uh,
you.
so I want to talk a little bit about how you and your work came into my life. And then I want to hear a little bit about you, and so you can tell our listeners, a bit about yourself and about your work. But just for context, I got given the book The Unbeating Heart, which is here, by my good friend and previous guest, Sabrina Borman, for my birthday last year. And I read it and immediately just fell in love with these characters. And I looked you up online and I saw you had all these other books. And I basically, over this last kind of like 9 months or so, just wolfed them. you know, I've got them all. I've read them all. I am a Patreon. I've read your like little shorts and things. There was one you released over Christmas and then another one over Valentine's, and they were both brilliant. So if anyone wants to know what they are and wants to read them, get on Patreon and we can go through those details and things at the end. And yeah, that's about it. So Cyran, tell us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I'm so glad you reached out because, as you said, we've developed such a nice little friendship, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. And really, really grateful because this vast expanse of the internet can be super, super lonely, especially if you're a small indie or an unknown indie. So this connection was like is really special to me, and yeah, really grateful.
Oh, no, that's so, so sweet. That's really kind. And I feel very much the same. I mean, um, I messaged you, I think, I commented on one of your posts, didn't I?
So yeah.
And then it sort of like started from there. And then we've been DMing each other for a little while now. And like whenever we talk, it's always just such a positive experience. It's always a very genuine like interaction, and it's always lovely no matter what's going on. It's always lovely to talk to you. So you were one of the first authors that I had in mind when I started up the show. And actually, little known fact, you were one of the reasons why I started this show.
My God, thank you.
Yeah, because for those who don't follow Cyran on social media or anything, first off, do uh, get on that. But also as well, the not only just the amount of output that you put out, also, but just the quality and the sort of entertainment factor. Like the quality of your content is just brilliant. It's you know
Thank
it's
you.
funny, it's inviting, it's informative about your work. It doesn't hold back. It's so original as well. There's a lot of originality to your reels and your content and things. And I would see how hard you work, and you're very honest online. You don't I feel like the person that you put out online is very much who you are offline as well. Obviously you don't like share everything because no one does and no one should, I feel. But what you do see is genuine, and you've never like made qualms about anything. And so when you put out things like people have pirated your work, and people and like you're not necessarily getting the recognition that you deserve, for the hard work that you put in, and how great your books are. I was like, that's so shit. That's so shit. Like, and I want, and not just for you, but I am so lucky to know a lot of indie authors and self-published authors online. Like I'm so grateful for that and the community. And it's so frustrating to see these really talented people put so much of themselves into their work and then, you know, not get the recognition or the reward that they should. And so, not that, like, I mean, God, I'm no, like, you know, Jimmy Kimmel or anything like that, or anything like even remotely that. I'm not even like who's small and, like, I don't know. I'm not remotely famous or anything like that, but it's just, you know, I do have a small podcast community of horror lovers and fantasy lovers that is different to the audience that maybe the people that I know in that community reach out to normally. And so I thought, well, I podcast, it's the one thing that I can do. And I want to do what I can to try and showcase these works a little bit more. But, you know, chatting with you and you know, as I said, seeing all the work you put in, and, you know, just sort of seeing the frustration from you and from a lot of other authors, because it's completely understandable of just like, you do so much and then get so little back. Like, I was like, this isn't right. It's not right, damn it.
I think it's so common actually. I see a lot of really, really talented folks who write books that are really outside the box and really unique. And I have seen a lot of them, even in my admittedly short time of being in the space, which is like about a year, almost a year and a half now. I've just seen them give up. And it breaks my heart because I think we need their stories, and everyone brings something unique to the table, and that goes especially much for you know, diverse stories, marginalized folks putting, you know, their stories out there, because that is a different lens and a different view that's important, you know, just as important as, you know, everyone else. And yeah, so I think what you do is amazing. And I'm sure every other small indie feels the same way, that we're incredibly grateful for you and other people taking the time to read our books, to talk about our books, because it really means everything to us.
Oh no, it's my absolute pleasure. And, you know, as I said, like, it's a lot of work for you guys to do. And since I've started caring about things like followers and stuff, which I've never really cared about before, like, I'm like, you know, for to sort of like get the show out here, and by default get the work that I'm trying to promote out there, you know, I'm doing a lot more social media content and things. And we were just discussing off air, like, God, it's a pain in the ass.
I'm not a big social media person myself. Like, I don't, like, when I was a private person, I didn't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook because it keeps kicking me off for some reason. I don't know. Always has for like the past 5 years or something. I wasn't really engaged online, and it's not really my thing, but you kind of have to, don't you?
This is it. It's yeah, it's sort of dealing with the devil a little bit, but hoping that you kind of, it's worth the payoff kind of thing. Like, I do social media, I don't mind social media and things, but I definitely sort of take it with a pinch of salt. But you know, as you say, like, it's a very useful tool in a lot of ways. So and that's what I kind of like use it for, especially with this podcast, is just trying to, you know, get people to notice and to listen and to read. You know, and in whatever format that looks like, whether it's books, Kindle, audio, whatever. Because you've got, am I allowed to say about this yet?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
I wasn't sure. Because you've got an audio book. Is it out? It's out, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yes.
I've got 2 out. Um, Love Like Gilded Bones and The Unbeating Heart. They're both out on audio right now.
Oh, it's Beating Heart out. Oh, I
Yeah.
didn't know.
And right now in production is actually The House of Grief.
Oh wow, really?
Yes.
That's gonna be interesting on the audiobook.
I mean, I personally really, really want to get The Pale Daughter and The Tyrant Prince on audio, but
that would be so good because of the first person, the flip
yeah,
back between Zal and Nyx, like,
yeah. the thing is just the way I'm currently producing my audiobooks is through a royalty share, which means there's no like upfront cost involved for me.
That's good.
But that's not possible with like a dual narration. So
Oh, right.
yeah, so I would
Yeah.
have to, and there's just no funds for it, unfortunately. So hopefully one day in the future, because I'd
Mhm.
really love to get that on audio.
Yeah, that would be just because of the way that it's set up so perfectly for audiobooks. So yeah, if you can get like, you know, oh God, I really wish I was in that casting room. I digress. So cool. Well, today we are talking about Love Like Gilded Bones, which you can see here.
Yes.
Looking all lovely. And actually that's the original cover. There is another new cover that's come out, which is done by, it's Lemonade Doodles, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, they do a lot of your covers and things, like the newer ones, like they did this one. I'll get this. And they did
Yes.
the Pale Daughter and Tyrant Prince.
No, the Pale Daughter and the Tyrant Prince is actually by a different artist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're called Gummy_Worm, but Worm is like, you know, the dragon on Instagram.
Yeah, with a one.
Yes,
Yes.
they've done that.
Oh, I
And
didn't know.
they also illustrated the illustrated cover for the Unbeating Heart, because there's a hardback version actually that has Nyx, Zal, and Zal on it. And Nico, who's Gummy Worm, did that, and yeah, the Pale Daughter and the Tyrant.
Oh, I didn't realize, because they're very similar in like sort of the style. It's a very consistent, yeah, very consistent sort of aesthetic. I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. I love these covers.
I'm
Ooh,
just like
sorry.
addicted to art, really.
Oh,
Like I love art prints, and that's like my walls are covered.
same. If I spun my laptop around, which I won't, because no one needs to see the state of my living room, honestly. I've just got like art everywhere. In fact, like after this call, I might just spin around and show you a little bit. But yeah, so this is the cover for the House of Grief, and as you can see here, it's absolutely gorgeous. And so the cover for Love Like Gilded Bones is very much of that sort of style. It's got River on it, and she's looking up gazingly in awe at Yevereth. That's right, isn't it? Yevereth?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll do my best with that.
I'm sorry for writing. It's such a complicated name.
Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it. It's not like, you know, I don't know. There's books with way more complicated titles, so and like names and things. So don't worry about it. I'm rubbish with names generally, as you know. So yeah, no worries. Just forgive me if I get it wrong. But anyway, yeah.
No
so
worries.
River's looking down, and he's like looking up at him, and he's looking down at her, and I think he's holding a rose, black rose from the garden.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everything, and it's all very it's very cool. It's very, anyway, so that's what you're looking out for when you go and buy that book. So yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous, and it just looks so beautiful on a bookshelf. Like I've showcased these out and things, but even when like you can see like they've got like really lovely spines as well, even on like the paperback, so you can see sort of thing with like flowers and whatnot. So even if you had it like spine out, it's still gorgeous. So if you're like me and love a book aesthetic, yeah. Cool. So yeah, like let's talk a little bit about you. It's like for people who don't know you, who maybe don't follow you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. So my name is Cyran, and I write dark villain romance that blends fantasy with elements of horror and sort of classic gothic literature. My main characters are all morally black and stay evil when they fall in love, but they're also utterly loyal and committed to their partners. About myself, when I'm not writing or reading, which honestly takes up most of my time, I spend time with my long-term partner or my dog. We have a little Yorkshire Terrier. Um, yeah, she's my baby. She's my baby. She's spoiled. I will admit that right now. Absolutely horrible at, saying no. Yeah,
Love it.
Otherwise, I have been a really avid gamer, like video games, since I was a small child, actually. I first played like my mom having me on her lap, and my mom was playing computer games back then. So that's a really big part of my life as well. And that's about it.
Oh, I love that. Love that. Yeah, my kid's quite into gaming as well, like
Oh,
between me
really?
and my dad. Yeah. And she plays like Spider-Man at her dad's and things, and she like, she she act like, so I will play like racing games with her,
Mm.
and I'm like, I'm gonna let you win. It's fine. And then she's like actually trouncing me, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try. And then she's still actually trouncing me, and I'm like, this isn't fair. How could you're better than me? 30 years younger than me. This isn't right. But yeah, so yeah, that whole kind of thing of you sitting with your mum or gaming and things really resonates, because that's very much me and my kid, and I
Oh, that's so
absolutely love that.
lovely.
That's
It's
so
like
gosh.
still precious memories, actually.
Hmm.
Like I don't remember much about my childhood, if I'm honest, but I remember I think we played Commander Keen and Lost Vikings. I mean, these
Oh,
are really old. I'm in my early 30s, so uh, yeah, it's. I guess that's where the interest comes from, maybe from all the way back then.
yeah, because that's, I mean, that's, I mean, I actually don't know those games, but they sound very kind of like fantastical and like a bit kind of like, like Viking-y and things like that. Is that right?
Yeah. And the other thing is like I mean, my God, I haven't played those either since then. But the other one I think is like a spaceship captain or something like that. Really, really cute. Yeah.
That's so cool. Oh, so I bet I bet that has been a sort of a subconscious influence and things, those, with like, because a lot of your characters are, I suppose, in charge,
Yeah.
of something, like they're either a demon prince or they're like a lord of the manor, or like things like
Mhm.
that. So I guess being able to like write those characters and things, like some of that will stem from playing those kinds of games where you're playing a captain, or you're playing like a Viking warrior or something like that. That's really cool. I just played like Sonic. I couldn't get over the lava levels. I had to get my mum to do it.
I mean, games used to be really, really hard back then too.
It was really hard. Thank you. It was hard. Anyway. So cool. So yeah, so you've mentioned that you write very dark romance and fantasy and horror, and that your characters aren't morally grey, they are morally black, and I can attest to that. Like, this book comes with pages of trigger warnings. And when I got the Unbeating Heart for my birthday last year, my face was kind of like, your neutral face when you read, and it was
Mm.
like as it went on, I was just like, okay. Like, but that's me. Not everyone not everyone is like that. So but it's, they are very dark characters. They are a lot of the times pretty abhorrent in their actions if we're looking at a scale of like civilized, but as you say, they're not just that. They are like fully dimensional characters. They are multifaceted, but I think you are such a lovely, sweet person.
Thank you.
No, you are just a lovely, very sweet person. Like, I have to kind of look up other words for sweet whenever I message you, because I keep thinking I'm using it too much. Oh, you're so sweet. Oh, you're so
I
sweet.
don't mind sweet. We can go with sweet.
So I want to know, like, what draws you to that dark side of humanity, or I say humanity loosely, obviously not all of these characters are humans, but that side of things, and just generally like the darker side of literature.
Well, for me personally, on like really a very personal level, the darker sides of the human psyche have always been very interesting to me. Sort of like what makes people tick, what makes them behave in a certain way. And dark romance is a safe space to explore those darker aspects of the soul, to have a sort of a thought experiment a what if this character behaved that way. Um, and I think that humans inherently have darker sides to them. Obviously, my characters are, um, well, exaggerated, right? Like there is, they aren't redeemable. They are very bad people. They are meant to be very bad people. And I also try to express that there is no like no qualms about them doing things that are definitely not okay, and definitely things that I do not support. Sometimes I think those lines get blurred, or people think like, you write dark stuff, and like, as you said, like what do you like in real life? um so yeah, no, like those things are absolutely not okay. They're all really horrible people. And those things should not be romanticized, to me either. Like it's fiction. It's a safe way of yeah, testing those boundaries, exploring those boundaries, stepping over them. And yeah, it's empowering in a way too. I've dealt with a lot of like trauma and negative experiences in my own life, and reading a dark romance or writing a dark romance puts me in a place of reclaiming that power and that confidence within those pages. I can shut the book if I don't want to read anymore. I can stop writing. I can direct the story in whichever way I want to. So yeah, it's really empowering and yeah, interesting to me.
Yeah, I can definitely see how that is empowering, and like, because where you have that control, and you have that, these are your characters, these are your creations, and you can kind of, put them where you want, have these situations play out how you want and things. And I mean, I don't know whether this is anything that you've done, but I would imagine like for me, like I would even maybe like, use that as a way to sort of, like, if I had like a terrible experience, I could almost write about that, but then sort of like right that wrong in a way. um so I feel like, yeah, writing is probably a very cathartic exercise and things. And yeah, like I wanted to, because I mean, in if in your author's note at the beginning, like you were very explicit about saying like, hey, this is not safe practice, these sexual
Oh
acts
God,
and
no.
things are not to be done. Like, please don't think that this is something that you can do and get out okay with. This is not acceptable. This is, like, you are very kind of clear about that. And I guess, like, when you read those bits, I mean, especially Love Like Gilded Bones, like there were a couple of points, because yeah, I think Love Like Gilded Bones is a very it's probably your, for me anyway, like the best example of a character who has done horrific things, continues to do horrific things,
Mhm.
and makes no qualms about it, and is pretty unapologetic about it. Like, they don't have, um, they don't have any sort of thing about, like, they don't apologize. They don't go, oh, well, I was really wrong about that, or anything like that. They're like, yeah, this is what I've done. Like, the most that they'll do is maybe not tell the whole truth about something, but when they do, they don't go back on themselves. And this is like the only book of yours where like I've kind of gone, ooh, like, in
Mhm.
terms of like some actions. Like the other stuff is like, the other books that I've read of yours, there's always kind of been like, in my mind, within that world and within that story, a justifiable reason for certain things. Um, but there are just some things, like, it's not even like the worst of the things, but just things like when you find out that he's probably been watching her through the mirrors without her consent
Mhm.
and things like that. I was like, oof, like, oh, come on, buddy, you're better than that,
No, he's
Um,
not.
no, he's not. He's not. He comes across like he is, but he's really not. Um, And I guess, like, do you have, when people get in touch with you and things about your books, like, do you have people go, "Oh, hey, that's not cool," or is that or like that's do people think that you're romanticizing these things? Do people kind of like get upset by them, or are people like, "No, I get it. That's."
I think, funnily enough, the thing that most upset people was the FF sapphic relationship part in the Unbeating Heart. I think I've gotten more negative comments about that than about anything else.
What?
Um, but I
That's
have not
crazy
really
to
had
me.
people reach out about this aspect in particular, like saying like, hey, that's not okay. Maybe it's because I do make it very obvious that this is the books are dark, and personally for me, Love Like Gilded Bones is probably the darkest book I've written.
Yeah.
And Irva is probably very much on purpose the most unapologetic evil man in my series. I mean, not to say that the others aren't, but Zal has done some really despicable things, which are sort of like a bit like touched upon, like passing by. But yeah, no, let's just say this: the internet is a very cruel place, and I
Mm,
have had very many comments on public posts where people have personally attacked me because they found the post. They haven't even read the book, but they found the post and then they decided to personally attack me. Um, I myself, I have a history of DV and SA, so I'm a survivor of those things myself, for example. That's a theme in Love Like Gilded Bones as well. I obviously very open about my struggles with mental illness, which have been going on for, well, as long as I can remember. Um, and some people will not take kindly to that, and I understand that. Um, but yeah, sometimes people get a little vile, and that's usually when I press the block button because, absolutely entitled to their own opinion, and I understand it's not for everyone. And my books, especially Love Like Gilded Bones, are meant to. Well, Love Like Gilded Bones was meant to shock and polarize a little bit, not for like pure shock value, but like it was meant to make you go, oh, you know.
yeah,
Um,
it does that.
so yeah, no, people can get a lot mean online, but I've got a pretty thick skin, thanks to gaming, funnily enough, because when you're in an online space like that, you play a lot, people get mean, so I kind of just go,
Yeah,
okay,
people
block.
get brave and then you call them out on it and then they're not so brave. But yeah, I'm sorry that you've had those experiences, and that just really just blows my mind, is that that's the issue that people have. I'm like, really? I mean, like, I don't think anyone should have like really issue with any of your work, but I'm like, out of all the things that go on in your books, that's the problem. Like, that shows more about them than it does about your work. And I'm so sorry that you've had people not be so kind, and
It's
especially about
actually
something that is just like sapphic romance exists. Like, why is that something that I genuinely don't understand why people would criticize that? It just blows my mind.
I could go on a whole like I could write an essay about this, but
I think you should.
I'm just gonna say that because obviously the Unbeating Heart, which is FFM, um, was my debut, I did not actually know about the fact that FF is not really accepted. Um, I, the first strange
Me
interaction I
too.
had was um, someone I asked to beta read for me, saying,
Hmm.
"Oh, I think you should rewrite this book to MMF because then it's more marketable." And I was like, I thought this was like a singular opinion sort of thing. And ever since I put this book out, it's been a constant, actually, that people go, uh, I would have loved this if it was MMF. Or people are interested and they hear it's FFM and they go, oh no, I don't read FF.
That I
Which
just don't understand it. I don't understand it. Like, I can't even formulate a question about it, because it just nothing of that makes sense to me. Like, I mean, obviously, people can have preferences and things, but for there to be such a barrage of like, anti FF or FFM dynamics, that makes no sense. For the record, I love FF and I love FFM. I love it
yeah,
all.
me
I
too.
love it
I mean,
all.
I'm pansexual, so for
Same.
me it's really yeah.
you're I tell you what, if you're a pansexual person, I mean, these books will appeal to anyone who likes the darker side of romance, but especially if you're pansexual, yeah, it will. There are definite boxes ticked, and then some you didn't even realize were on the cards. Just saying.
I think there's a little bit for everyone because obviously some of my books are MF. and then we have, you know, FFM, MMF. So
Yeah, you really like you play the whole board, you know, like there's
mm,
nothing that's sort of like off limits for you really in that respect. Like, yeah, 100%. And I mean, this book goes beyond that, because this person, although he is male and was once human, is. Would you want to tell us a little bit about Yvereth?
yeah. Well, maybe it's interesting to know, if people haven't read the book, that when River meets him, she's in a very dire situation. She has just murdered her abuser, and she's, well, on the run. Her car breaks down. Um, she took a wrong turn, so the car breaks down on a pretty deserted forest road, and she's looking for help. She stumbles across this old, it's actually an old asylum, and where she falls through like a time portal into the fantasy world, into my fantasy world, and meets Yvaet, who is at that point veiled, and he stays veiled and clothed for I think like the first third of the book or something,
I
until
think it's more than that. I think it's about half.
yeah, it could be, yeah, it could be,
Yeah.
um, where he reveals himself to be an undead, but like he is literally just a skeleton. He's got like a little bit of like golden adornments which serve to channel his magic, but yeah, he is literally, yeah, a skeleton. You know, think Jack Skellington.
Have you seen my little skull?
Gorgeous.
Right? I mean, I need to get a gold one now.
Yeah.
You know, I need to get there's some, and in fact, I'm pretty sure I have seen some gold ones with runes on like Etsy
Mm.
and stuff. I'm gonna have to scope me out one of them. There we go. Put you back. Yeah, no, and it's. I mean, it's. I knew already just from following you and like, you know, seeing people's comments and things, and he has a bit of an online moniker of Bone Daddy.
Yeah. I mean, when I put this out, or when I had the idea for this, the idea stems from me wanting to write um, a character that is completely not even at the fringes of what we usually consider attractive, but he is completely beyond that. I wanted his personality um, to be the like the attractive point here. I wanted sort of like, how can I say this right? I wanted people to fall for the monster based on yeah, on his personality before they even know what he looks like. And
That's a very demisexual sort of perspective, isn't it? In terms
yes,
of like you could have that connection through personality and through like someone's aura, as opposed
yeah,
to just, you know, their physical
yeah.
attraction.
I'm
And
demisexual myself, so
yeah, like so I think that's very appealing, and I think a lot of people, I think especially because people can be quite switched off nowadays, and I think people are kind of like, at least I don't know, people our age, people my age, like a kind of like coming round to, there is more than just what meets the eye on things. Like there is more to attraction than just what you look like, and you know, having that connection is, if not equally as important, is more important. I think when you're younger, it's very easy to kind of go, you're fit, you'll do, kind of thing, and you kind of like ignore red flags, you ignore, you know, personality sort of mismatches and things, just because you're physically attracted to someone. Whereas I think, like, I don't know, maybe it's just because I've gotten older and I'm hopefully gotten smarter, that you know, you kind of realize, actually, I need to have those connections. And for me, even if I'm with somebody on a casual basis, I still have to have that mental connection, that like intelligent connection as well. Like I need to vibe with them on a, like, not necessarily an emotional level, but just at least on a mental level. Otherwise, like, I don't care like how good looking you are or anything else. Like if that's not there, then I just don't
mm.
want it. So I think that this book is really good at appealing to that side of attraction. And he's definitely charming. Yeah.
He is, isn't he? Like when obviously I did a little bit of research when this idea popped into my head. Basically I have sort of a tendency to lean into necromancy because I think it's a really interesting subject.
Yeah.
So when I decided on a skeleton, like a lich, I looked and I couldn't really find anything else like it out there. Like when this book came out, there was no character like him. Um, and I guess it was also a little bit about not only going outside of these beauty standards, but also defying them and really like pointing out that it isn't maybe that important how somebody looks, you know?
Yeah, and as well, like, and I think as you said, going so beyond the sort of normal conformities of attraction. I mean, not only that, but you're actually tapping into what we instinctively are supposed to be unattracted with, as a, naturally, like instinctively, we're not supposed to find the dead attractive, undead
Yeah.
or otherwise. So the fact that you have made this character, you've created this character that is an undead, and a skeleton doesn't even like look, it's not like, oh, he's a fresh corpse and he's just, come back and he still looks the same, he just hasn't got a pulse, we'll just ignore that. Like he's a full skeleton, like there's no flesh, skin, eyes even,
Yeah.
and also typically as well, like, we as people generally like soft like, when you cuddle into someone,
Mm.
you've like, you have a cuddle, and like, you know it's a comfort, and we find comfort in soft things, whereas, bones pretty hard, and they're ridgy, and it's rib cage and stuff, and there's nothing
Mm.
to, but River finds comfort in those things, like she sees the beauty in him, and if anything, like, because of the bond that they have developed over these weeks, like she actually, I think, like, it's almost perfect. It's like for her it's almost perfect, because he's so unlike anyone that she's ever met, and he's very much a balm that soothes her, and so as a result, like, all of these things that we would maybe consider like wrong or imperfect or whatever actually are a real comfort to her,
Mm.
because it's all him. And I think that that's such a testament to your writing, how when we get to the point, we've kind of gone along this journey with River, and so when we get to this point, like I say, about halfway through the book, like we're like, okay, all right.
Thank you.
you know
Yeah, that was, I
um,
mean, that was very much on purpose. Like when the reveal comes, I wanted the reader to already have an emotional bond with this character. Having gotten to know him on an intellectual level, on the
mm,
level that he is, in fact, a real gentleman. He cooks for her. He later on he even writes her like love notes and stuff, and he writes her little letters, and he is very kind and polite, and he comes across as quite reserved. So yeah, that was really the I mean, the entire book is surrounding a theme of loving yourself and someone else as they are.
yes,
Um, you're biased with, being Bone Daddy, and I mean, I say it like it's funny, and it is in a way because it is a monster romance. It's sort of like, a little bit quirky and out there, but it's also knowing that the parts about ourselves that we believe to be unlovable, unlikable, ugly, repulsive, maybe even to others, that they're not. That we can be loved just as we are, with even our perceived flaws, whether they are or not. It's the same with River's scars, with River's self-harm scars, because she panics when he first sees them because she has always been ridiculed for it, or people think it's ugly. And for the first time, he doesn't really put a judgment on it of beautiful, ugly. No, he says, you know, for me, these are signs that you are a survivor.
yeah, it
The
was a
fact
really
that you
beautiful bit of
have been
writing.
able to carve these scars,
Yeah,
that means you're still here. And
yeah,
that is what matters. And I love you, scars and all. And also what these scars imply, because obviously those sort of like mental health issues, they don't just go away.
no, of
And it's
course.
often something that we find, well, yeah, is repulsive to a lot of people, because people see those who self-harm, which I also have personal experience with, as repulsive or as crazy. So yeah, the self-acceptance and accepting others as they are is a big theme that's also really, really important to me.
Yeah, and I think it's a very, if you can accept that about yourself and have other people accept that, then it's yeah, it's a very healing thing, because it sort of removes that stigma
Yeah,
from mental health issues and
yeah.
from suicidal tendencies and practice of self-harm and things. And none of that is something to be ashamed of. It's something to help, and like help as in help the person get better, not to
Mm-hmm.
help them towards anything,
Yeah.
but like help and support them, and to see them for what they are, which is the sign of someone struggling. And hey, maybe instead of judging, we need to reassure and support. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that's perfectly what he does. And he's he says every one of these scars is a time where you fought.
Yeah.
This is a show of strength. This isn't a weakness. This is a strength, because you were so
Yes.
low, and then you carried on because you're still here today, kind of thing.
Exactly.
It was, I mean, I'm paraphrasing. It's written far more eloquently in the book, but essentially that's kind of what it was. And it was such a, like, I even think I was reading, I had my earphones in just because I do to read and block everything out, and I just sort of kind of, without even realizing it too much, just went, oh wow, like, it was just such a wonderful way of writing. It was just such um a very honest
Thank you.
and refreshing
Mm.
way of writing those things. So no, fair play, absolutely. And I think that all of the, because mental health is something that crops up a lot in your work, and self-doubt and things like that. And I think that you write it very well. I think that you
Thank you.
yeah, but I think that you write it in a way that is accessible. It makes it understandable if no one's gone through that, or if they're fortunate to not have gone through that, but also as well relatable and reassuring and supportive for those who have gone through that. So I think, yeah, like, the fact that there is mental health stuff going on in these books, I don't think that is a reason, like, obviously, like, everyone varies, but so I'm not going to say you'll be fine reading it, but like, if you have gone through that, don't think that it's going to be a negative thing when you read it, because it isn't. Like, how that might trigger someone still
Mm.
anyway. I'm certainly not going to say you'll be fine, but like, because I would never be that irresponsible, but like, don't think that when you read about mental health or self-harm or anything like that in your work, that it's going to be a negative thing, because I don't
Mm.
think, I can't really think of a time where it really is. I think it's
Thank
always
you. Yeah.
done in a very honest way.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think like as well, because we kind of touched on this as well, but I want to sort of expand on that, is why these characters who are, as you said, evil, do very unforgivable things, but why it's so important that they show tender emotions and things, in addition to their sort of more sociopathic tendencies. Like, why you wouldn't have, like, why so far you've not really written about a character who is just pure evil, like, that we've really gotten to know. Like, there is a character or two that crop up, obviously, but they're always kind of dispatched of pretty quickly. We don't get to know them as characters. If
Mm.
they are the characters we get to know, the ones that we follow, even the evil ones, they are, they do have like softer sides, and they do have more romantic sides. And I just want to know, like, why do you take that tact?
Well, I think it's interesting because it's sort of a shock to our systems. Usually, when we hear about evil characters, it's very easy to distinguish ourselves. You know, we know that a good person, they care about their family, they love their spouse, and then we have the evildoer who raised the village, right? And we see them burning down the castle. And so it's very much clear cut. But when we
Mm,
see a villain being kind, tender, loving towards their family, their friends, their loved ones, their partner, whatever, it sort of blurs these lines. I think it makes one a little uncomfortable, because then we can see traits that we ourselves have. Like, we love our families. Like, I love my spouse, I love my family, right? And
mhm,
this villain does that too. And then sort of maybe one gets the thought of, well, if this villain is able to have these positive emotions, then maybe I am able to have these negative emotions that they have. You know
Mm,
what I mean? Like,
yeah.
it's sort of like seeing that villains can also, like, that they are also people,
Mm,
bad people, admittedly, but that there are common traits that we share, and that they aren't necessarily evil to everyone or from every point of view. Like, for example, if you want to take a different couple, Nix and Zal from The Unbeating Heart or The
mhm,
Pale Daughter and the Tyrant Prince, they
mhm.
are bad people, but not to each other. Like, if you'd ask Nix, she'd see Zal as a loving, possessive, yes, but yeah, she'd see him as, in her mind, that's a good guy.
Yeah.
And I think that's this sort of dichotomy that's really interesting to write and for me to
Yeah.
read about too.
Yeah, yeah, no, I'd agree. And I think as well, like, using Zal and Nyx as an example, like they see the evil, they see the darker sides, and they love them anyway.
Mm.
And not even in spite of that, but almost because of like that's one of the reasons why they love them, because I think that these characters, I mean, I would say like that Zal and Nyx are pretty dark characters, but in very different ways. And I
Oh
think
yeah,
that Nyx, she's, without going into it too much, she just wants love,
mm.
and she wants to be loved completely for who she is.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that Zal, sees her, no, like sees her bratty side, sees her evil side, her, all these kinds of things, and he still loves her completely. And by him having dark sides and evil sides to mirror hers, it helps her accept her not so perfect moments too.
Absolutely,
Um,
yeah.
and I think that is something that we can all relate to. Like, okay, we're not all inherently evil. I mean, some of us, but like, but as you said, we all have things that we don't like about ourselves. We things that we're ashamed of, things that causes anxiety when we think of them, and things like that. And to find someone who sees those and loves us, I don't even say anyway, but loves us, what, like, yeah, but you wouldn't be you if you didn't do that, you
Mm.
wouldn't, like, you wouldn't, that makes me laugh. What are you talking about? That's not something to be ashamed. That's funny. That's great. And that kind of thing, like, is something that we all kind of, if we're wanting a partner, that's the kind of partner that we all kind of should aspire to, and we all kind of want. So, and or even just not even in a partner, in friends, in family, in anyone who is in our,
Yeah,
we just want someone to see us and to love us because of all the things that they see, not in spite of the things that they see.
very
uh,
well said, yes.
yeah, so I think that these characters very much do that. And and even someone like Eva, oh, I think that he has a great capacity for love, and it's a jarring read, but I think that's intentional, because
Absolutely.
you'll have him do pretty horrific things, but as a demonstration of love. And and as someone, as a reader, you're just kind of like, okay, this this is a good thing. Like, it's something that we normally wouldn't think of as good, but like, cool. Like, it's yeah, it was definitely a book that made me question things.
It's
um
exactly the point. Like, I
yeah,
want people to read this and really question like a lot of things.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, like, I
that's
recommend your work, but I always kind of like, I'm like, check the trigger warnings. Like, don't just skip over them because you think you'll be mine. Check them, because these books are very taboo, and not everyone has the sensitivities for that, and that's okay. It's completely okay.
It's so
um
funny to me because I never really considered my books taboo up until recently when people started like saying that. Because I don't know, for me it's so clear cut that this is like fiction and pure fiction, and none of this should be like extrapolated into real life. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as I
Yeah.
said, I never like try in any way to justify what these characters do, because it's unforgivable, because they're villains. Yeah, right. So so when people go like, yeah, this is really taboo, I'm sort of like, oh yeah, I guess, you know.
I think it's because as readers, we're naturally wanting to endorse our MCs, our main characters. You know, we're wanting to kind of get behind them fully. At least I do anyway. Like, I find if I have a main character that I can't find any kind of relatability, like they're just
Oh yeah, no, definitely, yeah.
I can't get behind them and I can't enjoy that story, no matter how good the writing is, no matter how good the plot is. If I don't get on with the main character, at least on some level, I'm
Mm,
out, you know. And so for me reading it, I'm like, you know, loving these characters. And again, it's about loving them for all of who they are. And some stuff it's difficult to love for everything, because you're just like, wow, that's fucked up. Like, you know. But yeah, as you say, like, it's not, you know, it's very clear, like, it's fiction, it's not supposed to be, you know, justified, it's not justified. But like, I think as readers, we naturally want to justify it because we love these characters, you know. And sometimes it's really difficult to.
yeah. I think there's a lot of like books that are popular right now, especially in like contemporary romance, which I
Mhm.
obviously don't write, and I have to admit I don't read much contemporary romance.
I don't much of it. I read some, but not lots.
But I think there are a lot of like also very irredeemable, like especially MMCs
Mm,
that are very popular currently in contemporary dark romance.
yeah.
So I think that's just generally, I think that's really like that's why, you know, it's dark romance. And it's all like it's a fantasy. It's much like some sexual fantasies that some people might have, where it's really just the fantasy. Like it's just, you know, it's a thrilling thought, um, you know, but not to be translated
Yeah, it's
into real
like,
life. Yeah.
you know, people have fetishes for CNC, and you can look that up if you don't know what that is. You know, and stuff like that. Doesn't mean to say that they would actually want those things to happen or anything like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%, I get that. Cool. All right then. Nice. Um, so sort of talking about dark romance and that side of, you know, things. Your books are very, I don't like to say the word smutty because I feel like it sounds a bit disparaging.
Oh,
Um,
I don't mind spice, smut,
they're
erotic,
smutty.
whatever.
They're erotic. They're, yeah, very spicy. I mean, this is like 5 chili peppers out of 5, you know. And as I said, I've read all of your novels, and you know, this is the first one. So first off, there's only really one scene of a sexual nature,
Yeah.
and the book isn't that long, so that's
Yeah.
fair. But even in House of Grief, which is the same length, give
Hmm.
or take, um, I mean, there's
I
whatever
think
other book.
four. I think there's four or five in the House of Grief.
Yeah, but for a book that's like 190 pages long,
Yeah.
you still managed to pack out so much plot. It's a real talent, honestly.
Thank you.
And you know, this doesn't lack for plot. And like what you do as well is that you utilize sex scenes to further the plot, and
Hmm.
to allow a character, sorry, to discover something about themselves. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your sex scenes are never really like just thrown in. There's always seems to be like a purpose for them, which I really appreciate, because I feel like sometimes people and like sometimes authors can, and like, you know, to be honest, I've never come across that with indie authors. It's always been sort of like more mainstream authors, and I'm like, do better. But it's just like it's almost exploitative in a way, and I love the smart scene, but I need it to be for a reason. Like, I get very sort of like dismissive and like, oh, like if it's just for the sake of it because you want to talk about someone's tits, you know, like,
Hmm.
you know, like, it's, for me, like, I always appreciate when it's for a reason. But what I was going to say, sorry, getting there, is is, you know, all of your books very much have a lot of spice in them, but this only has one scene, and it's about, you know, it's over halfway through that we get it, and it's a very, you know, very much a slow burn, and it's not boring. It's a wonderful build up of emotional and sexual tension, and like the payoff is like, you know. But I did notice that it was a different tack to usual. And is there, I mean, was there a reason for that, or was it just how the story just flowed from you?
Well, a lot of things in my books, I don't really settle on that sort of thing beforehand. A lot of how the relationships develop depends really solely on my characters. I sometimes joke and I say I'm, possessed by those characters while I write the scene.
Mm.
Um, like they speak through me more than I make them do things. Um,
A lot of
so
writers have said this who I've spoken
yeah,
to lately.
it's actually
Amazing.
incredible. It's very nice when it works. When they don't want to talk, not so nice. But
Yeah.
but yeah, no. For example, my other books, it just the amount of spice scenes and how fast or how slow they happen, it really depends on the personalities of the characters. Irvine in Love Like Gilded Bones, he is a very reserved man. He's a very private man. He has also been alone and emotionally isolated for a very long time. So
Mm.
for him, it doesn't really make sense to want that very soon, especially also because he admits that he is self-conscious and insecure about the way he looks, because the other people who have seen him like this, like, full skeletal, they were shocked, they were repulsed. They might have liked him before the veil dropped, but they didn't want anything to do with him as soon as they saw what he really is.
Mhm.
So for him, um, I don't think he would admit it, but I think he wanted her, or was maybe a bit afraid that she would react the same way. So
Yeah. Yeah.
he took his time, and obviously, spoilers, he had originally planned to use her for his ritual to free himself from what the curse that binds him to the mansion. Um, and yeah, I think that's why he held off sex for so long, because it was sort of like the climax, if you excuse the pun, of like this tension and him sort of a little bit like battling with himself,
Mm.
um, of like working up the courage to do it, as well.
Yeah, and I think, do you know what? Like that is so relatable for so many people. Just like, you know, because I mean, body image is such a huge insecurity for most people,
Yeah.
honestly. Like I don't know a single person who is perfectly happy with their bodies, who wouldn't change something or whatever. And that is a spectrum. Do you know what I mean? Like people will be like, yeah, I mean, I know I could maybe like, you know, do this, but like, you know, overall I'm pretty happy, but that does bother me, but I'm not going to
Mm.
let it. Whereas some people are just like, don't look at me, I'm disgusting, I'm abhorrent, I'm ugh, you know, like, and it's a thing. But I feel like, you know, sometimes it's easier to just abstain, literally.
Yeah.
You know, or like, or just, you know, not put yourself in certain situations that could let you be vulnerable. And it's the same on an emotional level too. Like obviously I'm speaking physically because he's worried about his physical looks, but I
Hmm.
think, you know, when you open up emotionally to someone, if it's something, if it's not something that you're used to, or something that you find like not very easy, there is that insecurity, there's that anxiety of like, if I do this, will they run? If I do
Yeah.
this, is this going to change things? Are you going to not like me anymore? Are you going to, you know? And it, I think that that is such a huge, like, relatable topic for people, that I think, to be honest, that is when I really I came from just like appreciating Yvereth to, I really like this character, you know, like, because I liked him, like, don't get me wrong, like he was very charming and everything else. But I was kind of wait, because I knew what was under that veil, and I was kind of waiting to see how that kind of played out. And, you know, his vulnerability and what he says about how other people, sorry, have reacted. For me, it was just like, I relate, you know, like whatever else you've done, like that part of you is still, despite everything, the years you've lived, what's happened to you, the curse, everything is still so human, you know?
Yeah.
I think fair play. Like, yeah. Um,
That ties in with what I said earlier, which like is like giving villains very human, very relatable traits that sort of like make the reader connect, while still, it's a bit of like a tug of war then, between like a bad person, but also they have these relatable parts, and it's a very interesting thought experiment. Yeah. I
yeah, I
think,
mean, yeah.
sorry, please go
No,
on. Um,
no, no, you go.
no, if you remember the scene where he first unveils himself and shows himself to River as he is, that's also why he has such a strange reaction to her actually thinking that he's good looking, because
Mm,
he says, "Don't touch me," basically, and and the same thing happens when he realizes that he's in love with her. That's why
mm.
he sends her away. It's such a visceral, like shocked reaction for
Oh,
him.
but it's so, oh, it's crushing.
Yeah.
It's really hard hitting when you read it. You're just like, what are you doing? You know?
Yeah, and she feels the same way. She's like, "Why are you doing this? I want to be with you, and I accept you for who you are, and none of this bothers me." But he just can't. He can't fathom that, and he sort of puts the "I'm afraid I'm gonna hurt you." I think it's more of an excuse, really,
Yeah,
because he had plenty of opportunities, to
yeah.
actually do something to her, to harm her.
I mean,
Um,
he did.
so yeah, um,
Yeah, no,
vulnerability.
no, definitely. And yeah, it definitely is a very interesting character read, and tug of war is absolutely right, I think, but in a really good way. Um, so okay, so talking about him, like personality traits and singular tastes aside, um, you know, I wanted to talk about, because he has um a very, what's the word? He's like a almost an obsession with food.
Hmm.
And food is a really big theme in this book. There's a lot of food description. There's a lot of, like, a massive variety of types of food. Well, kind of. Um, we find out it's not that varied, but at least when we're reading it through, it's a very kind of varied palette and thing, like menu, and he just has this, it goes beyond fascination. It is more like an obsession with food, and having River describe what she's eating. Can you talk a bit about that and why that's so important?
Well, first of all, that comes from a personal standpoint from me, because I'm chronically ill. I have like a very stupid combination of a bunch of things. Among those, I have quite a lot of like deadly allergies, which means anaphylaxis if I consume foods. I have a lot of intolerances. I have a lot of like GI issues. And that all basically comes down to me being able to eat like a dozen or so foods safely. Um, so for me, writing a character that has so much to do with food was a bit living vicariously through them. I did a lot of research. I put together these menus actually that he serves her. I looked up the preparations and how things would taste, because for many of these things, if I've either never eaten them, or it's been over a decade since I've last been able to. Um, so it was therapeutic to me personally, to write these descriptions, because food has been a sore spot and sort of, yeah, how can I say this right? Like a downright a source of depression for me, because I'm very limited. Like I can't just go out with friends and eat or cook, or when
Mm,
gifts are given to me. Like, people always give chocolates or bake you a cake for your birthday or whatever. And I always have to say, no, I'm sorry. I can't
yeah.
have this. So it's quite a sad topic to me.
Mm,
Um, that this book has rectified that a little bit, at least.
Oh, that's great. Oh, I'm
So
I'm really pleased for you for that.
it's a little healing. But beyond that, obviously, food has very sensual properties. Like it appeals to all our senses, right? Like food can be crunchy. We have the flavors, the smells, the tactile feeling when you bite into something, when you chew something. Foods are known to be aphrodisiacs, certain foods. And that's why, maybe that's also why the spiciness so late, because I wanted a focus to be more on like small eroticism and how intimate it is for him who lacks a sense of taste, because he obviously doesn't have a sense of taste, which is part of his curse, as you find out later, to have her describe the flavors in detail. Like it's kind of a kink for him, even. Um,
That's
and I
fair.
think that, yeah.
That's fair.
And I think we as humans derive a lot of like non-sexual pleasure from eating, like eating a nice pizza, or having a sweet little treat or something. Like it gives us pleasure, it makes us feel good. And he's just taking that a little bit further. And then obviously you also have the whole cannibalism theme, that for him he was a cannibal in his former life when he was still human, and he has sort of kept that up. And there's obviously also the shock value there when she finds out that he has indeed been feeding her.
Yeah, that was the other, like the sexual depravities, so to speak, like that. I don't know, maybe I'm just used to it. But that was like less. That wasn't the part that kind of made me go, ooh. It was things like I said earlier, watching her in the mirror without her consent, feeding her humans without her knowledge. Like that to me was like such a violation, like more so than anything else. And like, but the thing is as well is that I feel like for him, I feel like it's two things potentially. Like one, it's him sharing the darkest part of himself with her. But also as well, there's part of me that like wonders, maybe you can answer this for me, wonders whether he gets like a bit of glee from giving her such a taboo food source. Like cannibalism is one of the darkest taboos we have in this world. And it's, yeah, I do wonder whether he kind of got a bit of glee from sort of like doing that. I don't know if he does, but
I think he does, but the main point, there were two main points to it. As you said, the first one you got completely right. He is sharing his like darkest secret with her, which is also why he sort of like left the journal out for her to find and figure this all out. But also, Irad is at his core a master manipulator. He is manipulative as fuck. Like and he made her complicit in this without her knowledge, so that when the news would come out, she's already part of it.
and
And
she's
she had,
enjoyed it as
yeah, and
well.
she's enjoyed it because she didn't know, Please, again, keep in mind, fiction, absolutely despicable behavior from his side, yeah. So, but yeah, but like, yeah, that when that comes out, and if she was to try to condemn him for it, he could go, "Oh, but you did it too."
Yeah. Oh my god. So. Oh. Yeah, it's just pure manipulation and
Absolutely,
oh, yeah. But yeah, not only did she do it, but she enjoyed it.
yeah.
I mean, apparently we do taste like pork, so I had pork last night. It was really nice. But but yeah, there's see, this is the thing, like there's all these little things that kind of like go on, and it's just it's so clever, it really is. And yeah, he's a very, very interesting character. And I think that the food, not only what he prepares, the way he prepares it, um the care that he takes. He doesn't let anyone else serve her. I think you're right, it is definitely like a slow burn eroticism. And yeah, food is it's a very sensual thing. It
Yeah.
taps into our basest desires. And you know, even if you just think about, like, people using whipped cream and chocolate sauce during sex, like, that's
Yeah.
still the same thing. It's like, and I mean, even if you think about, like, if someone's out at a meal or been cooked for at home, or anything, and they really liking what they're eating, like the noises that you make, like, take it out of context, that could be sexual.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I think it works really well within the context of this book. And on top of that, it's given you um some healing on it, so that's an added bonus, which I'm very glad about. But yeah, no, I think that's all really, really interesting for sure. um
It's
and
also
also,
how, sorry,
sorry, no, it's
it's also
okay.
how he shows his affection, because he is a skeleton. He obviously lacks facial expressions,
Yeah,
and it was actually a very fun challenge I set for myself, because there are no narrowing eyes, no brows drawn, no smiling. Like,
yeah,
it's just bone. So I really had to find ways of expressing his affection, what he feels through, well, more body language, more through his actions, and specifically also just well, have him speak about them more, just like straight up say what he feels as well. But the food definitely came into that as well, as you said, that he only serves her himself, that he prepares it all himself. That says a lot about him and how he's courting her, really.
yeah, definitely. And I think everyone has a love language, don't they, like, or several, and that's definitely his. And I think as well that it speaks to just sort of, like, as it goes on and she becomes more comfortable, but at the same time, like, they do end up becoming very, very consumed by each other.
Mm,
And and as love does, when you fall in love, it is all consuming, and it does take over everything. And not only her love for him as that develops, but also just her love for this world, and her love for herself. And how all of that develops, it's almost a parallel with the food, in terms of just the confidence that is given, and how it becomes such an important part of their dynamic and their
hmm
relationship. And he shares more and more with her as their connection grows more and more. And then ultimately, I am going to put a spoiler warning ahead of this interview, but this book has been out for a little bit, so and it is out now, so if you want to go read it first and then come back, that's fine. But eventually he does, during sex, he feeds her a part of herself.
And a little
And
nibble.
a little
It's a
sort of,
little slice, like,
a little bit. Just see if you like it. But I think that is very literally the climax of
mm,
the darkest part, not only of him, but he takes it from where she has taken out the darkest of her feelings on herself,
hmm
and he's sharing the darkest part of himself with her darkest part,
hmm
and coming together, no pun intended, coming together in this way where he's sharing that with her and letting her experience that. But yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, I've
Yeah,
been going around in
absolutely. Yeah,
circles a bit, but you know
that
what I
was
mean?
very much the purpose. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that I think that if he was just a cannibal, and he was just whatever, and that was just something that he shared with her, then it wouldn't have the same poetry as if you go through with all of this food and this build up and this seduction through
Mm.
food, to this culminating part at the end. um and then after that, that's when all fucking hell breaks loose, kind of thing. So it's literally, that's that tipping point where they're both realizing the depths of what they feel for each other, for themselves, and everything that surrounds that. So I think that you need to have those moments with the food, with
hmm
you know, sharing of that meal in the best way that they can, with her describing it and her enjoying it and things. And yeah, I think it works perfectly. Yeah. So I also just wanted to talk about as well, like, because you said before, like, you know, finding challenges with how to express himself, because he doesn't have expression.
Yeah.
So yeah, so like, tell me a bit more about that. Like, what was that sort of process and the challenges within that?
Well, as I said, I had to look for alternative ways. So, because he is very much an acts of service, love language kind of guy as well. So that's exactly where the cooking came in a lot. And it was the little touches, it was the caring for her, making sure that she's healthy, that she's like overall like comfortable,
Mm.
which was something that he did very much from the start. And then obviously I also gave him like glowing eyes because he doesn't have eyeballs anymore naturally. So those also indicated his emotions a little bit later on. Um, he let that show a lot more, obviously, once he opened up. And then, for example, like blue was sad, green was sort of like his normal state, yeah. And yeah, I think it was super fun. I miss writing him quite a lot. So maybe I'll revisit those two at some point because it's
It
been
does seem to be a bit of a setup, that there's going to be a bit of a
oh
crossover.
I okay, I'm going to be completely entirely honest now.
Okay.
My novellas, which are standalone, obviously, some of these characters you will see in the trilogy, the completed trilogy, because The
Mm.
Unbeating Heart is obviously the first book. It was my debut, and some of these novella characters you will meet again in the second and the third book. Um, yeah, so that's that.
Okay, cool. Cool. Right. So yeah, okay, cool. No, that's so I'm just very excited.
That makes me excited.
I'm also very glad that there's going to be at least, like, there's going to be like 2 more books
Mm.
with Zalthorn and Celine. Hopefully, anyway. I mean, you never know with this thing. One of them could die, and you never know. But
I promise happy ever afters. Like my
you
books
do,
are
yeah.
always gonna have happy ever afters.
You do say this. That is part
So
of
don't worry, it'll all be fine. I promise. No matter how it looks at some point, maybe.
yeah.
It'll be fine.
Because, like, I'm not gonna lie, the end of The Unbeating Heart, I was like, you can't stop there. What the fuck? Like, I was literally like, the only way I can like akin it is to when I was, I don't know, like 11 or 12, whenever it came out, was The Lord of the Rings, watching Fellowship of the Ring, and then it just ends, and I'm like, we just you can't stop there, Like, I was
I'll take that
like,
as a compliment.
yeah, oh no, do. I was just like, no, I need to know. No, are they okay? Are they? Please let everyone still. But she didn't mean, like, they didn't mean it, like.
Okay, wait. Let me just give you a hint then, right? And
Okay.
everybody who's listening maybe to this. So if you think back to the ending of The Unbeating Heart, spoiler alert, if you don't want to
Mhm.
know about this, probably skip the next 2-3 minutes.
Yep.
Um, when Celine arrives at their manor,
Mhm.
the lights are all lit. She doesn't even have to knock. Castor opens the door for her, and Nyx and Zar are sitting in what they have set up to be like their throne room
Mhm.
in the outfits from the cathedral. So they are like, they have been waiting for her.
Yeah.
It's maybe they're welcoming her home.
Yeah. This is what I was like. Yes, this is the thing, because
Like they don't sit around all day there, in their little get-ups from like,
no, of course not. Of course not.
No, they've been
It's
waiting
like
for
they're
her.
waiting for them to come in because they're gonna welcome her, or whether they're gonna like reprimand. It's fine. I don't need to know anymore. I will wait
It'll
patiently.
all be explained in the
I'll
sequel.
wait patiently. I'm not very patient. Anyone who knows me, if anyone knows me is watching this, they're like, no, you're not. So okay, cool. I always want to talk, because obviously, like you mentioned before about how people in the book community online, at least anyway, have an issue with God knows why FFM or like FF dynamics. But what I think is really great about your work is how inclusive it is. It has lots of different representation of gender, sexual identity, and sexual preferences, everything. And I obviously, you're, said before, you're pansexual and you're non-binary, and for me as well, like I'm pansexual, I'm a cisgendered person, but I am pansexual and things. So having like more of that representation is great to see for me. But also as well, not only that, but not only is it like your books are inclusive, but the world that your books are set in are also inclusive. Like no one cares how you spend your time sexually. No one cares how you identify. You're just, are you a good fighter? Like everyone is like, is very much and what kind of thing, like
Yes.
it's a very accepting, very normal way of being. And for people, especially like Zal, who's like, the demon of desire, kind of demon prince of desire, it makes sense that he doesn't sort of like limit himself. Someone like Nyx, who is just she is just a walking id factor.
Thank you. She would love to hear that.
Yeah. Again, it makes sense for her not to restrict herself and things. I don't know why they would limit themselves with only finding certain people attractive. But it's great to see that other characters who maybe aren't of that way also accepting them. And I just guess, like, how much of that, when you're writing, how much of that is in the forefront of your mind, and and how do you decide which route to take with who is it something that just naturally flows from these characters, or is it something where you kind of like make a decision, right, okay, so I think this person would really suit this type of gender, this sort of, how does that kind of go for you?
I think this is another topic where it's important to know a little bit about my own background. I was in the closet for a very, very long time. I grew up with an extremely homophobic father who was abusive on other levels as well, but homophobia was one of his standout personality traits, let's call it that. And he especially had a problem with women loving other women or sapphic relationships. To him, basically, the worst quote unquote insult he could bestow upon a woman was to call her a lesbian. Um, and when I was a young teen, and I sort of, when you start developing, crushes and all that, and I realized that I was maybe attracted to feminine presenting folks or women. It was the end of my world. I cried myself to sleep for years, I think.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I have to say, my mother is an incredibly supportive person. She's very inclusive, she's very open minded, and she tried really very, very hard to counteract that sort of thing. But it still very much got to me, and it got to me in a way where I denied that part of myself up until my, well, late 20s. And even then, I wasn't publicly out. Um, so when I started writing my debut, The Unbeating Heart, which obviously has Celine as the main character, it was, to me, it was a natural thing. Like, I wanted my world to include all kinds of like sexual orientations and genders. And I know that coming out stories, and I personally find that coming out stories and stories that focus on the very real struggles of being a queer person in this world or in another world, they have and an amazing amount of value. They're very, very important, and especially to maybe younger queer people who, like me, were in the closet, or But I would like to see more stories where queer folks are just queer folks. Like, they exist, and that's why my universe is queer normative. Like, there's pan folks, bi folks, there's trans people, there's cisgender people, uh, and people just are how they are. Celine herself helped me a huge amount to like come out in public, because I knew that if I was going to write this book and if I was going to publish it, I would be out. I wanted to be out and proud. I wanted to stand by myself. And Celine is actually gender fluid herself. It's not at the forefront of the book, and she does use like she, her pronouns. But she is definitely a gender fluid person, and varies a little bit in how she like visually expresses herself, because she does enjoy wearing more masculine clothing sometimes, and obviously that is also something that is different from like queer person to queer person, how they express themselves, which pronouns they use. But yeah, it was natural to me. And as for the orientation of my characters, they kind of dictate that. They just like usually when a character comes to me, they sort of introduce themselves. That sounds crazy, maybe. Like I have a little voice in my head.
No.
But yeah, like they introduce themselves and they just go, yeah, hi, I'm this is I'm River. I'm bisexual. Or Zal, for example, he's obviously pan, and he's also demisexual, which I am myself. Which I thought was an interesting dichotomy, because as a demon of desire, he's sort of like expected to fuck a lot, and he's just gone against that because he needs an emotional connection to feel that attraction.
Yeah.
And I thought a demisexual demon of desire, and I was like, hey, okay, well, if that's how you are, Zal, then that's how you are. So that's how I wrote him.
Yeah, and I think as well it's understandable, someone who's been around as long as him and has had so much sex as he has, and like variations of like very varying types of sex, like he would be craving something deeper than that, like at the beginning of The Pale Daughter and the Tyrant Prince, he's so bored by this orgy in front of him and people throwing themselves at his feet and things, and he's just like, over it, and then he meets Nyx, who is just so exciting and different and like a firecracker of energy, and they just, and I mean, obviously they're destined anyway, but like I feel like even without that he would still be fascinated by her, because she's so different to who he normally deals with. She's not sycophantic. She does like call him out, she does give him a hard time and things, and I think that for him is very refreshing, and I think that is, apart from the fact that she's absolutely stunning, and
I mean, right?
right, but like I think that he would be extremely attracted to her anyway, just because of how she is and how she makes him feel, which is so different from just, and that goes so much deeper and so much more beyond like, do you make me hard?
Yeah, no, definitely. I think that
yeah.
asexuality, which obviously being demisexual is obviously under the umbrella of asexual, and it just doesn't get a lot of rep in romance books, especially. It obviously has to be said that asexuality or demisexuality is very different from person to person. I mean, there are definitely folks that experience, like me, sexual attraction only after an emotional bond has formed. There's folks who don't feel it at all, and yeah, but I just thought that it's something I want to see more of. I want more people to write, all these diverse orientations, and
yeah. I mean, anytime there was someone recently who I interact with on social media, and they're a writer, and they'd literally posted that they wanted to see more diversity in their books and things, and I was like, like pointing them towards your directing kind of
Thank
thing.
you.
Like, have you seen? And it turns out that actually they did know of your work, and they had the Unbeating Heart on their to be read pile, but they just hadn't got to it yet. But they were like, I'll be getting on that sooner than I thought then, because like they were wanting to see something more than just your straightforward sort of MF, writing. So yeah, like I think that you do have one of the biggest sort of representations for sexuality and gender, and in pretty much any of the books that I've read, like
Thank you.
so fair play to that. So there's this so I've just got like a couple of like light-hearted kind of questions now, just to sort of finish off. Firstly, there was one point when Yivareth takes River down into the basement, where he carries out all of his like experiments and his necromancy and things, and she confirms that she has no regrets about being shown what lies there, despite how dark it is, and like, I don't mean like lighting wise, literally, like, and then he responds, good, I have so much, well, it's a bit in the middle, and then he says, I have so much more to show you. Like, that to me just really resonated as like the line from Hellraiser, like, we've got such sights to show you. And I wondered if there was any of that sort of like, was that like an intentional nod or not?
No, it wasn't. I have to admit, it wasn't. I've not seen the movie. If you
Oh,
get
really?
to know me more, you'll probably find that I haven't seen or read a lot of stuff that is popular. Like I'm not very like immersed in pop culture. So
I'll send you a list.
please do.
I'm like, not to like flex, but I am legit so good at recommending, especially film. I'm so good, because I have two, I don't really talk about on the show, but I have two other podcasts, both a movie, specifically like horror movie related. Although one of them deals with like just general genre darker movies, not just explicitly horror. But I'm a big horror nerd. So I will recommend you some
Please
stuff.
do.
And where to find them.
If
Yeah,
you are,
Hellraiser's top of the list, by the way. You love Hellraiser. Oh my word.
oh, I don't doubt it. I don't doubt it.
Oh.
I just in the past few years, I've not been much of a movie person anymore. I guess I don't have a lot of time.
That's true.
And when it comes to like shows and series and stuff, I've also fallen off the wagon a little bit, I have to say.
Those are a commitment. Like, they are like a huge commitment. Like, I just watched 16 seasons of Criminal Minds, and it took me like a year. And that was like, a lot of that I wasn't working. A lot of that
well,
so like I get the TV show thing, like that's 100%, but yeah, like I mean, yeah, like I'll recommend you some films when you, as and when, no rush, they're not going anywhere.
Funnily enough, there is a little bit of like on-screen inspiration, and that's specifically for Irvaeth. I am a huge fan of the 2013 Hannibal TV show written by
I
Brian Fuller.
was gonna say yes. I was, because with the food preparation and everything, and
Yeah,
the
I mean,
descriptions.
it's sort of like the he's a bit like this similar archetype where he's like a very highly educated, very well-mannered man who hides the beast inside him.
Yeah.
I've had a few readers say that Irvaeth reminds them of Gary Oldman's Dracula as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I see
I
that.
watched some of that movie afterwards, and I was like, yeah, I can see that. I can see that.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was really just like generally gothic literature genre conventions that were inspiring the book in general. You have the classic unsettling atmosphere setting in like an old mansion. You have the mysterious, terrifying unknown, because he's veiled obviously, and it's an entirely new realm for her.
You
You
have
have
like the
magic.
henchmen and
Yeah. You have
yeah,
like a curse and like very dark secrets and
Rose Garden and
yeah, and as like, as it often is in Gothic literature, one of the characters sort of like needs saving, quote unquote, like because he takes her in, and it's all very like dramatic, intense
she
emotion.
saves him, and it's a whole
Yeah,
yeah. This is definitely like yeah, this is definitely the most Gothic of your books, I think.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
It's definitely I would definitely call it a Gothic book. Um yeah, it's and it has the romance, and it's that kind of like intense sort of like romance too. It's not like they're not like they're not a fun couple. Like they're not like, hey, let's do circles over at the pier type couple. They're like, let's read by the fire and drink our goblets of blood and like kind of brood
yeah,
kind of couple, you know. And like that,
yeah,
you know, that's great. But like, you know, um like I like for example, again, Zal and Nick's very different type of couple to
yeah. They're more like the fun couple, you know.
yeah, they're a fun couple. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh my god, can you? I want to go on a night out with Nick and Zal. Like, look, I
Have you
basically
same?
I want to be Celine. That's just what I want. I want to be a Celine.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say no to that either, so I can't blame you.
The other parallel as well, which I've mentioned to you, and again, you said that you hadn't seen it since child, is I get very much Beauty and the Beast vibes from this. Like a lot of the setup and a lot of the imagery is very in line, and that's not that I mean it's also very different in a lot of ways, but like the themes and things about it, I would recommend that you watch Beauty and the Beast because it's a great Disney film, but also
I should
like
probably watch
I
again. I
think
was like, I don't know, maybe
I think
6 or something when I.
well, fun little story. When I saw it, it was at the cinema, and there's this scene where there's this big fight between the villain and the beast
Mhm.
on the roof, and it's raining and everything, and like you know whatever, and it's pretty brutal. And anyway, it's like stormy, and you've got like the beast snarling and everything, and it's like he's like you know clawing at this guy Gaston and everything. It's really fucking intense. Like even
Mhm.
as an adult, I'm like, yeah, I get this. Like, because what happened was that all the kids started crying, including me, and we all had to be taken out.
Oh
Um,
my god.
yeah, because we were all just crying so much. Because I mean, I think it's like 93 or something that it came out. So what have been 5, 6, you know? So, I, so yeah, I just have this memory of just being like, and then all of the kids just all bawling their eyes out, and we all had to be taken outside because we were all so
A
upset.
core memory.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
no, I
yeah,
um I have not seen it in such a long time. I'm not a particularly big Disney person. So
I think Beauty and the Beast is has recently come about as like a bit of a meme for you know I'm a dark reader, of course I like Beauty and the Beast kind of thing. I'm a dark romance reader, of course I like Beauty and the Beast as a child. You know, like because it's very much got a lot of those sort of tropes
Mhm.
in it. Um, you know, and I just please, if you get time, please can you watch it and then let me know what you think and what your
I
thoughts.
will. I
In fact, if you
promise.
could live message me, that would be great. It's like I just feel like you're gonna get such a kick from it.
Oh,
But yeah,
I might like it. I mean, I don't
I
think I
think you'll get it.
disliked it when I was a kid. But as I said to you before, Emperor's New Groove was my thing.
So good.
And it's
So
so
good.
funny because I regularly rewatch this. I rewatch it about once a year, and last time I watched it was last summer, which was a few months after my debut came out. And
Mm.
as I was watching this, I just thought to myself, well, Cusco definitely has Nick's energy.
Yeah, I see that. I see that. Yeah, very impulsive, very quick to tempt
Self-important.
thing. Yeah, very self-important. He's very self-important. But it's kind of like, you know, it's like with her, she's very childlike. It's like a kid, you know, when they're like, I'm the best. You're like, yeah, honey, you are, you know.
She really uses it to her advantage.
Because she's just so fucking adorable with it. You can't even get annoyed with it. You're not even like, all right, love, quiet down, you know, kind of feel like, yeah. It's just, she's just, yeah. I'd be such an enabler of her. Do you know what?
Me too.
I don't wish I'd go on a night out, because I think we'd end up in jail or dead, because all I would
Yeah.
do would be like, yeah, let's do this, like, yeah, let's go. So I'm just as impulsive, and also think that I'm going to live forever. So I think me and her on a night out would probably be a very dangerous thing for
But
me.
fun.
Fun,
Hmm.
but very
Yeah.
dangerous
Yeah.
for me. Not for her, obviously, because immortal, but definitely for me. So okay, cool. If he could enjoy food and taste food, and you were to prepare a meal for Ivareth, not human, what would you cook for him?
Yeah, I'm not in the habit of cooking human myself, so
Really?
surprising, isn't it?
Wow.
Uh,
Yeah, it is.
um,
You describe it so well in your books.
oh my God. No. Um, I think I would have to go obviously with some sort of meat. I'm not the greatest cook. Um, but I would say a nice medium rare steak, you know, roast potatoes, maybe some green asparagus, a salad, a nice wine, and then like maybe I don't know, a mousse au chocolat or something like that for dessert.
Oh, you can cook for me. That sounds lush. That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
So
invited.
I'll come over. It's
Yeah.
fine. I'll hop a plane. All good. Yeah. Yeah. You can definitely cook for me. Okay, cool. Lovely. Steak, you're going to cook for me. Excellent. I like
Yeah,
this. I like
Eva is invited too. You're gonna have to deal with him.
fine. I will. That's fine. That's okay. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. And then so lastly, if you can describe Love Like Gilded Bones in 3 words, what would they be?
That's a difficult one. I think macabre, lavish, and seductive.
Oh, yes. Yeah, they're perfect. That's exactly what that's yeah. I'm going to describe it like that from now on. So no, that's lovely. That's all my questions. And thank you so much for coming on and for answering them so well, and for just going into some really personal things. I know that's not always easy to do, especially on a platform. So really appreciate that, and thank you for being so open. Where can people find your work, and where can people find you if they want to follow you online or anything, or get in touch?
Well, first of all, it's been my absolute pleasure. I've had a blast talking with you. It was
Great.
great. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah, if you want to find my books, they're currently all exclusively on Amazon. You can read them free in your Kindle Unlimited subscription, or you can buy them as ebook and paperback, all through Amazon. Um, you can find me on Instagram at Cyran Faringray. I'm under the same name on Threads and on TikTok and Twitter, that's now called X. Or you can simply type in cyranfarangray.com and you'll find my website. You can also shoot me an email, a DM. I love talking to folks. Always happy to answer any questions or just chat a little bit. And really, reader messages make my entire month. I don't get a lot, but when people reach out, it's like such a highlight. And yeah, please never hesitate to reach out, talk to me.
Oh no, I mean that's exactly how our friendship cultivated. So I can attest to that. Like, Sarah, you're not one of those like, oh, I'm sorry, who are you kind of.
Oh my God,
I do
no.
understand why some people have to be a bit like that, to safeguard themselves, but but you are a very open person, and I think that you reciprocate just as lovingly. It's always a delight talking to you,
Thank
and
you.
I'm very grateful for our friendship. And also, as well, just because you didn't mention it, audiobooks for
Yes, I'm so sorry. Audiobooks for Love Like Gilded Bones and The Unbeating Heart are on Audible.
yeah. So yeah, as you can tell, I'm a big fan. Please go and
Thank you.
check out their works. It's a ride, is all I'll say. Obviously, check trigger warnings. Make sure that you're okay. We were not exaggerating when we say that these go to some dark and taboo places. I myself am a very open-minded person, I like to think, and even sometimes I'm like, as we've said, I'm like, ooh, okay. So please do sort of, you know, check that at the door. But if anything on there, you know, if there's, and also as well, like, you know, if you're a bit unsure, I would say, because like when sorry to sort of, you know, go into this a little bit, but like when I was an advanced reader for House of Grief, I mentioned that I had certain icks, which, you know, are kind of tapped on in House of Grief, but actually the way that you write, Cyran, is, I don't want to be like, oh, it makes it okay, but it makes it accessible, you know, like, because I think that you write these characters so fully. It's, as I said, everything happens, nothing happens for the sake of it. It all happens for a reason. Everything is kind of explained, even if you don't agree with the motivations or the reasons. That nothing ever happens for funsies. You know, there's always something behind it. And so I think it does make the darker side of these things more palatable.
I don't, as I said, I don't really think to myself, oh, I want to write something really gross. So I'm just going to, you know, shove this in here just to be like disgusting. That's never the point. Those things that happen, they are always meant to show a facet of the character, or sort of like tap on a thought, or like move a thought process forward. Yeah, it's very nice to hear that you think I make it accessible.
Yeah, I think you do. Yeah.
Because maybe my tip is, if you're not so much into dark, maybe don't start with Love Like Gilded Bones.
Yeah.
I have actually had multiple readers who said that my books were their first dark romances, even though they never liked it before, and always felt like sort of intimidated by it. So maybe that plays a little bit into what you said, that I make it easier to digest.
Yeah.
Not Love Like Gilded Bones.
Yeah, don't start with Love Like Gilded Bones if it is your sort of first venture into this sort of genre. I would say Unbeating Heart, maybe.
I think personally, I always recommend that people start with the House of Grief or with the Pale Daughter and the Tyrant Prince, actually, because they're both standalones.
Yeah.
The House of Grief is very fast paced. It's short, so you can kind of like, you know, but obviously if you're looking for a specific relationship, you know, dynamic, then for example, if you're looking for FFM, it's definitely the Unbeating Heart.
Yeah, I always sort of say, just because where the Pale Daughter and Tyrant Prince was written as like a prequel, like I'm always a little bit like wary of recommending reading it before the Unbeating Heart, although it is a standalone.
It is a complete standalone.
Way, yeah, just because it was the way that it was. But like, if you're like quite happy for people to read that one first, then I would say that actually, yeah, the Pale Daughter is a really good one to start off with, because these characters are so playful. And I think it's probably the lightest of your books.
It is, yeah.
Still goes to some dark places, 100%. Yeah.
Nix is just funny, you know. She's fun, she's funny, she's very like, you know, happy-go-lucky kind of. And yeah, no, it's definitely a standalone. I absolutely wrote it with that in mind, that you can just pick this book up. You've never read anything else, and you can read The Pale Daughter and the Tyrant Prince, and it's a self-contained story. Yeah, so.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I think it's just because like I have this like thing of chronological, like when things have been written and the way that like when they've been
publishing order, yeah.
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 Yeah, no, 100% what you just said there, for sure. So yeah, that is a really good one to start off with, because I think it is the lightest one of your books. And then and then if you do want more, then you have like the Unbeating Heart and other books to follow. So yeah. Great, lovely. So that's basically it. I'm just going to run through where you can follow and find me. So obviously wherever you're watching or listening now, but I am on YouTube, on Spotify, Apple, there's a few other ones as well. I think I'm on Podbay and things. Just put in Kate Anjou's book reviews and you'll find me. Online, on social media, I am on Facebook under Kate Anjou's book reviews. And then on Instagram and TikTok, I'm under kate.orangejuice.book.reviews. So you can follow me there. Please, you know, get involved, interact, tag me and stuff. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you've got any book recs. You know, especially, I mean, it doesn't have to be indie stuff. You know, I'm open to all books, but you know, especially if you're reading some indie works, and if there's anything that you've looked into or bought as a result of my recommendations, then I'd love to know. And yeah, just get involved with the chat. I love. It gives me such joy. Facebook page especially is filled with people just saying, oh, I picked this book haul up today, and I did this today, and it just gives me such joy to see that, because it's just so lovely to see. And I've actually really bumped up my to be read list as a result, because there's authors and things that I've never come across before, and I'm like, oh, that sounds well interesting. And in fact, one of my birthday presents was purely from, like, my mate had said, oh, what books do you want? Like, give me a list and I'll get you one. And one of them was literally the week before a book that had been posted on the Facebook page, and it sounded really interesting. So in that list, I put that book, and that was the one that I ended up getting. So yeah, I really do listen and read and look at everything that gets posted, and I always trying to respond as soon as I can. So it's a very interactive space if you want to get involved. But thank you very much for watching or listening, however you are tuning in today. And thank you again to Cyran Faringray for joining me and for having a wonderful, wonderful conversation. And yeah, thank you so much.